Hello, welcome to Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real, metaphysical, and occult knowledge so that you can manifest real and tangible results in your life. This week, we're going to be discussing the 15th spirit of the Goetia, Eligos, so stay tuned. Okay, so we are back, continuing our series on the Goetia with the 15th spirit of the Goetia, Eligos. Real quick though, before we get into this, if you enjoy this kind of content and you've enjoyed this series or any of the other videos that we have on this channel, do us a favor, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click that bell icon so that you're notified anytime we release a new video. We're always trying to give as much practical information on the occult and magic as we can here on this channel. Now, with that done, let's get into it. What do you say? Alright, Eligos is the 15th spirit of the Goetia. Now, in these videos we do follow a pattern and we usually talk about the appearance. Now, in the Goetia, traditionally, Eligos is often described as a knight in armor with a lance and snake in hand. Honestly, from the magicians I've spoken to who have also worked with Eligos, this description does tend to pan out quite a bit, or a warrior in some variations. In my personal opinion, I actually see this to be true, which, of course, at the end of these, we always do wrap up with my specific workings. But in the Goetia, he is said to appear as a knight in armor with lance and snake in hand. That said, the armor from the magicians I've spoken with and other practitioners, it varies greatly, not only from practitioner to practitioner, but from evocation to evocation anytime they work with them, which I think is pretty cool personally. Alright, so next we get to the correspondences of this particular entity. So, Eligos' rank in the Goetia is Duke. The metal most associated with Eligos is copper. The planet most associated with Eligos is Venus, and the color would be green. And Eligos' element that he is most associated with is water. Okay? So that's pretty straightforward, I think, if you want my personal opinion. Which brings us, of course, to the areas that Eligos is actually skilled at helping an individual in. And those would be finding hidden things. That's the first one. That's mentioned in the Goetia. Now, what does this mean? If something is hidden, something is lost, something is kept out of sight and viewed, he can help you to locate it. He may not necessarily give you its exact location and how to access it, but he can aid you in finding it and researching it. I know a lot of treasure hunters and even salvage ship captains that work with Eligos to help them find the things they're looking for. Now, sometimes certain things that they're looking for are actually outside their grasp for different reasons, whether it be they need different equipment, whether it's just something that is specifically unattainable at this time, whether there's even legal red tape. Maybe they have to access a location they don't have access to. These are things that can happen and which can block it, but I've also found that if you continue to work at it and continue to work with Eligos, most of these people do find ways to work into it. It can take some time and some work for some of these projects, depending on how big you're wanting to go. Now, me, honestly, I'm not going to lie, I have used this to find my car keys before. I've also used it to find a missing book, or I've also used it to find things that friends have hidden from me specifically. I do know one magician who used it to actually find where his wife was hiding Christmas presents, which I find rude personally. That's not nice. Save the surprise, people. Come on, let's have some fun. Let's don't get. Yeah, that's that. I don't find that particularly cool. Okay, Eligos is also really good at knowing things to come. So this is kind of almost a divination, but in my experience at least, Eligos does give the information of things to come in a more riddled, mysterious kind of way. And largely, that's because the future is not written in stone. It is malleable. So he does speak honestly of things to come, but it is in such a way that it does leave interpretation, and it also does leave the fact that certain decisions will vary what's going to happen. And the further out you get from what's to come, the more vague he gets. So that is something you need to be aware of. He knows the different pathways and whatnot, and he can speak on it. But when he speaks on it, he's going to speak on it from a perspective. And if that perspective isn't the exact path that's followed, then it may not come to pass exactly as he spoke it. And that's something we need to be aware of. This, for me, is actually one of the least useful of his abilities, because I practice divinations. I can utilize runes, tarot, or scrying to do the same thing more regularly and get a more accurate plotting of my course to get where I'm going far better, in my personal opinion. There are maybe some magicians who's had really great luck with this. The next area that Eligos is really good at is know about war. Okay, Eligos knows war, and that makes sense when you consider his appearance also. Now, he can help you to understand war. He can help you to understand its necessity. He can help you to understand its place in the greater scheme of things. He can help you understand its place in balance. He can help you understand your enemies. He can help you to understand ways to approach things to resolve them as peacefully as possible or with as little loss as possible. When it comes to war, there is a knowledge there, and it is a knowledge that he is very, very good at helping with. Okay? Now, building upon he knows about war, he gives good counsel on feuds and arguments and how you can defuse them, how you can end them, how you can solve them, what you can do about them to remove them as a problem in your life. Now, to me, this is useful. This is very useful. I know so many people who get into arguments and feuds, and more often than not, I know they're trying to solve problems, but they just make the problems bigger. And I have found Eligos is great at actually helping them to understand ways to diffuse it mutually and make everyone, we'll say satisfied, not happy, but we'll say satisfied with at least the conclusion of the argument. And of course, he can help you to understand the plan of an enemy, which is handy. If you understand what your enemy is thinking, if you understand their plan, you understand their course of action, that allows you to better defend yourself if need be, or to derail them if need be. Okay, and moving on. The next thing that Eligos has been able to help a lot of people with is gaining the admiration of a leader or one in authority that you already know. Now, this is actually an interesting one in the way it's stated in the Goetia and the way it is actually utilized in modern times. A leader or authority is someone who essentially has some authority over you. This can be someone at work who maybe a department manager, or somebody who's or someone who's just a project leader in the group, someone that your job would require you to listen to what they tell you in some manner. Someone who leads the group, for example, very easily. Now, this admiration is usually viewed as pleasantries, respect, understanding, friendship, that. However, there are people who have attempted and tried, and some successfully, to push admiration into more romantic feelings to attempt to develop it. You can try that. But remember, if you're playing around with dating in the workplace, that crap usually don't end well at all. So be careful if you go there. I tend to recommend, if you're using this one, to stick it with friendship, respect, and that kind of stuff. Don't move it into relationships, because dating in the workplace, in my experience, is always a bad idea. All right. Now that we have covered some of the things that Eligos can actually help us with in our practice, why don't we go ahead and get his sigil up here on the screen. All right. And now, of course, the next thing that we like to include here, because so many people enjoy them, are the uns. And the most common un for Eligos that I've been able to find is, and I'll make sure it's up here again so you don't have to worry about my pronunciation of this particular one, is Jadan on ka Eligos anan. 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 Pretty simple one. Not one of the trickier ones I've had issues with. All right, now my personal experiences with this spirit. Every time I've worked with Eligos, they have appeared as a soldier in one manner or another. They really have. Sometimes it was a knight, but not always. Sometimes it would be more in Asian armor. Sometimes it was in modern military fatigues. Sometimes it was World War II, World War One. Sometimes it was, more what you would expect, like Revolutionary War style garb. So the military warrior view has always been projected in one way or another. It definitely, he seems to be pulling largely from human history that I know, and even some that I didn't. There's a few that I've had to look up and figure out where that appearance came from, which I've found interesting, and has sent me down a little researching history hole from time to time, which I love to learn. So don't begrudge him that one bit. But that soldier persona does definitely come through quite a bit. There's no doubt the spirit has a great knowledge of conflict resolution and strategy. And in fact, that may be one of the biggest areas I work with this particular entity in, is just conflict resolution. I got so many friends and individuals who come to me for advice on how to just resolve a conflict. They don't want to be right. It's not about right or wrong for them. They just want the conflict to come to a close. They're tired of the stress. And oftentimes it's not even a conflict they're directly involved in. I've seen it with siblings are fighting and the third sibling out just wants it, just peace in the house, if you will. But because of that, conflict resolution is actually one that he is very, very good in. And I have seen it work on a personal level, on a group level, and sometimes even on larger scale, which is pretty cool in my mind. I think conflict resolution, seeking understanding, and strategies to understand people, very, very powerful and beneficial really to everybody, if you want my opinion. And of course, due to his ability to see what is to come and to be able to tell us what is to come, though I said that is not one of his better abilities, and I don't use it that way because I can use divinations, one thing I have found Eligos to be actually very helpful for, it can be very, very helpful in understanding events and the best way to navigate them. See, knowing what is to come and knowing that the future is fluid and changeable and malleable, and knowing that what he tells you may change based on the decisions any number of people make, to me that's not really useful. That's just like a shot in the dark. But using that ability for him to see what is to come, to help you sit down, talk with him, and to come up with a game plan and a course of action to navigate the events that are coming up, this I actually think is very, very important. Honestly, it's like planning a road trip. You need to know not only where you're leaving and where you're arriving, you need to know everything in between and how you're getting there. You need to know what path you're taking, where your stops are going to be, where your rest points are going to be. Theoretically, you're going to keep an eye on your gas, where you can, gas up, stuff like that. But you also need to have some idea of how to redirect if something happens. Anything can always happen that's going to change up the plan. A perfectly great road trip might have a traffic jam somewhere that you have to avoid, and that's going to cause you to deviate. Life and matters that we need to navigate in life work very much the same way. And because of this, Eligos is fantastic for helping us to understand how to navigate those situations. There's been many a times where I have been presented with very stressful, very complicated problems, And I really just was lost for where to proceed to. And Eligos has been very, very helpful in helping me to understand the process and help me to map out a way to progress and navigate the situation. And honestly, more often than not, this situation that was very complicated becomes a very easy thing to navigate with his help. All right, very quick, very simple spirit here that we got. But I do recommend you work with Eligos, especially if it's just for helping navigate life. The ability to help and ease the navigation of life, that alone is an amazing thing in and of itself. And conflict resolution, also another amazing thing. In fact, I've found many times working with Eligos that more often than not, the easiest way to resolve the conflict is to focus the attention on ourselves. It's kind of amazing how that turns out usually. But I do find Eligos to be a very helpful spirit and ally to have and work with. So I'd highly recommend you reaching out to Eligos and give it a try. See what you can do, see how he can help you. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And until next time, I'm Drake. This has been Working Dragon Mystic. Take care. Bye-bye.